Ooh, oh god. Still don't have a new tripod. Anyway, so, um, okay, pen. I was gonna kind of sit and simmer on this for, a day or something, but I currently have eyebrows, so might as well talk about it now. So, I literally just got finished watching VHS 85. Just like previously, I will always talk about every VHS movie because why the fuck not? Um, so, because it's a VHS movie, gotta write down some fucking notes because it's several segments, and I've got a weird brain that remembers and then doesn't remember all at the same time. So, um, first I have to say that this is one of like my favorite ones. I think what was it? God, I have to look. Last time on Lost, what was the other one? Let's see, VHS 99, which was last year. I gave it 3 stars. I think 99 was one of my highest rated ones, or no, 94. So in 2021, VHS 94 is the highest rated one. Everything else is kind of like the old, God, like the first few VHS was very much like, oh my god, you know. But they're improving. You can tell the budget's gone better. You can tell that like the filmmakers are taking this kind of project a little bit more seriously in a sense. You know what I mean? Um, anyway. So let's go on with it. So actually, yeah. So I guess spoilers since yeah, because I'm gonna be going through every segment. But I guess before spoilers, this all these like just like I said previously, they all look like they kind of fit in the era. Whereas before, like the first two VHS ones, you're like, wow, it's called VHS, but these are obviously shot on like high quality, blah blah blah, And then when they did viral, you're like, okay, well that's supposed to be digital. You know what I mean? Like now it's like because they put a year to it, people are more inclined to be like either put like a filter on to get that old grain feel, or like what some of these seem like is that they actually shot it on video, which is awesome, you know. 'Cause I think you could still get like VHS tapes, like blank VHS tapes, like at Walmart or something, And then if you have one of those big ass cameras and they still work, go right ahead. I have like a DV camera that I want to use on one of like a future trip somewhere that I still can't afford to go yet. But like, one of those things. Anyway, so 1, 2, 3 spoilers. Anyway, so like I said, this does look like it is shot on actual video. A lot of these, like on actual video, and even if the ones that like were probably like, I mean, a little bit of like maybe they shot it on like 8mm, or maybe they did the old big old camera, or even again digitally filter it. It wasn't like it fit. You know what I mean? It wasn't like the previous ones where it's like clear like this, and you're like, wow, VHS, and then there are some like real quick like footage and stuff which I think are from actual stuff from 1985, or like at least the 80s, because they were like extra like this is the gesture, they were extra like the quality was just like is this filmed with a potato kind of thing. Anyway, um so there's this interweaving segment called top copy. I don't know what total copy. Total copy. I wrote total copy and then I started writing top copy. Um, so interweaving of it. I guess I'll just go on with that one. So, it's about like how they found like this like what did I write? Weird goopy boy. So it's like this boy and he's kind of like just doesn't really have much of a face, and they were like swabbing him and he's all goopy, and that's done in kind of like a 60 minutes kind of like news segment kind of thing, like like a Dateline kind of thing. So it's like you're learning about how like they discovered this boy, and then like scientists trying to figure out he would ha all that stuff. What else is there? Yeah, like he would like you would cut like in between the segments, it'll cut back, and then he gets kind of goopier, or like he's kind of cocooned himself kind of thing, into more goop. And they're trying to like they don't know what to do, so they kind of lock him in this room, observe him, but they just keep playing like television, just to kind of like have him learn about us. I don't. It's just like, okay, sure. Um, you start seeing like he has like tentacles, and you're like, where is this going? Um, oh yeah, he's starting to look like he's about to like gestate or something, and like he kind of takes the form of one of the doctors, and they're like, well, he's never seen that doctor before because he's never been in the room. He's like, how did he know? Like, how does he, whoa, kind of stuff. What else did I write? Oh yeah, and then the final thing is like that the, you know, goopy kid, more tentacles come out, attacks the doctor guy who finally goes into the room that he starts kind of mimicking, and then like just like, there was a cool part towards the end where you could just see the person who has a camera. You just see them just slowly being like dragged down the hallway, kind of thing. But it wasn't like perfectly angled or whatever. It was the skin of a ring thing where it's like, let's just show this corner, which is more of the correct thing to do when it's found footage. I hate when it's like, wow, the camera fell perfectly at this shot. It's slightly angled, but you can see down this hallway. Like I hate that. It's like, come on, man, like do a little bit better. I get you're trying to like get a shot, but like, again, if you're, what I mean? Like, if the camera falls, like, you could get, like, kind of like this, but you still got, like, some of, what I mean? But, like, they'll do it, like, it'll just be like this. It'll be like, oh my god, this camera fell perfectly on the floor like this. What? Like, that kind of shit always gets me. I'm always just, oh god. I swear, I'll try to get a new tripod this weekend of New York Comic Con, anyway, yeah, so that one, I that thing, I found it as like a good thing, kind of like a segue thing, to go in between all the segments, because it was done as a news segment and all that stuff, so it was kind of like easier to follow. And I feel like if it was just this one big news segment, it would kind of feel kind of like boring, or just like, what I mean? But like the fact that it was kind of chopped up like that, I enjoyed it a little bit more, but now realizing, like, just talking about it, I'm like, it's kind of just like, eh. But anyway, so besides that, the first, like, full segment, oh, my nose, is called No Wake, and, it has, like, a very, like, Texas Chainsaw, Friday the 13th feel, because it's, like, young people in an RV going somewhere kind of thing. I have to give shout outs to the wardrobe person who gave the big beefy boy a crop top and booty shorts. Thank you. We need more of that. And I don't just mean like in like the queer community when people bring that. I mean like we need some like cishet straight, like super straight guys wearing crop tops and booty shorts as if it's fine. Because that's how they used to do it, and it's totally okay. Give me more of that, please. Anyway, so you see, like, in the camera, the guy has, like, the big old, like, like, family camera kind of thing. So you see them, they arrive at a thing, big old sign says no trespassing, and they're like, take that down. They go, and you're like, okay, whatever. And so they just start camping, having a good time. They're just like, whatever, like, we're young and silly, and da-da-da. They're like, let's go out in the water, oh my god. So you're thinking, like, what's gonna happen, right? Like, you think initially, you're like, they're by the water, they're having fun, and, like, is it gonna be kind of, like I said, like a Friday the 13th thing where, like, at night, and then da-da-da happens? No, it doesn't happen. They go... Some of them stay by, like, by the water, and then the rest of them go, and whatchamacallit, they go do some water skiing, they're having fun. There was a sign that said no swimming, and it was like, okay, whatever, but like, probably, you think, like, it probably just says no swimming because, like, no lifeguard, or like, maybe, the water's kind of icky, kind of stuff. Anyway, so they're in the water, all that stuff, and they're on the boat, and suddenly you just hear, pew, pew, pew. At first I thought it was like a projectile, like a bow and arrow kind of thing, just the way how the shots were, rather than like gunshots. But anyway, so like, oh my god, one person, she gets shot, her like her mouth is like all that stuff. The effects are great in this one, and everyone gets shot, and they're like, ah. And then again, there's a couple points where the camera falls and you hear it rather than seeing some things, but then of course they gotta flip the camera over. But again, it's on its side and you're like, okay, sure, fine, we're doing this, you know? So they all get shot and you're like, okay, well, you're thinking, this is the end of the segment. This is the end. No. The one dude that, like, they like, show, he just suddenly is like, even though you saw him get shot through his life vest, he's like, what? And then whoever was, like, in the water was like, get me out. And even the woman who's like, you know, she gets up, she's like, what's going on? And you're like, what the fuck? You know, they get out and they're like, oh, I tried to take off my life vest and it's like organs, you know. You're like, the fuck? So they determined that, and the one dude was like, his head exploded and he was just like, oh, let me just, some stuff in my hair, that's my brain, you know. And the whatchamacallit, they like determined, they're like, it must be the water, because we were like, it was like the only thing that made sense, because they were in the water, they literally got shot up, but they're fine. Like, they don't really, like, yes, their organs are coming out of their bits and pieces, you know, but like they don't really feel pain. They're just kind of like, huh, this is weird, you know. But then the people who didn't go in the water, they got shot and they were totally dead, you know, because there was one of the dudes that, oh god, was on the boat, but he never got in the water because I think he was driving the boat the whole time. But he got shot in the head. He's dead, you know. So like, was it 4? Yeah, it's like 4 out of them, and then I think 3 of them died, because the one dude on the boat, and then because there's like 7 of them. Anyway, so they're just like, what are we gonna do? Da da da. And you notice on the RV there's like a number 7, like Roman numeral 7 written on there, and they're like, we gotta figure out who do this, and you're like, okay, and then that's like the end of the segment. You're like, huh, you know, yeah, magic water. I wrote down. So then the next segment is called God of Death. It's a Spanish-speaking one. It happens in Mexico. It's a news segment, but not like I said, the total copy one. But this one's more of like just a regular news thing, and there's like a correspondent and all that stuff, and because it's like all the footage, so you get to see like the correspondents being like telling the mariachi band to like simmer down because she's trying to film a thing, you know, and then she's just like trying to do like a walk and talk segment, but she kind of like trips a little, kind of, you know, and that's actually the director, which is really cool, and she had like the full like 80s newscaster hair. I don't know why doing that would make you think it's 80s newscaster hair, you know, but the coif, the 80s coif. But then an earthquake happens, which I think, like, actually in, I think, 19, like, the date they gave, that there was an actual earthquake that happened in Mexico. So they kind of use, like, a real-life thing to do their, like, you know, fantasy thing of weirdness. So, you know, the main correspondence woman who's doing like all the stuff, you see like, cause they're like, it's like this, and they're like, keep going with the segment. She's like, oh, it's getting shaky, and then like a whole ceiling collapses on her, and you're like, oh shit. So the rescue team comes in, and they're just like, all right, let's try to pull people out. There's only a few people left, you know, and they're trying to like, evacuate and all that stuff. Obviously, more of the building is collapsing because it's a big earthquake and aftershocks and all that fucking shit. But yeah, so then they're like underground, I think, and oh yeah, I wrote down. Sorry. I said, love how they're evacuating and need to grab the camera. Yeah, so because it's like all the cameras fell down, but then they're like, we gotta go, and the guy's like, I gotta get the camera. But he was a camera guy, and I get it, but it's also just kind of funny that like that's the thing with found footage movies. It's like, oh, we need the camera. We always need the camera, kind of thing. But anyway, so he grabs the camera again. They get underground, and the dudes start like cracking, like glow sticks and stuff like that. And then I love, again, with found footage movies, Cloverfield definitely overdid it with this, which is like suddenly it's like, oh, there's a light on the camera. Nah. How did you know? Especially like those old ones, you would know there's a light. There would be like a fucking like, thing there. I always forget that there's a flash on this camera because I don't ever use it. But like, a few times I've actually accidentally like activated it and it pops up and I was like, oh, what the fuck? Because I forget, you know. But like back in the day, you just got like this brick there. Like, come on. Anyway, no, they're like, oh, there's a light here. You know, like I said in Cloverfield, it was like, oh, there's a light, and then suddenly the guy would be like, oh, shoom, oh, it's got night vision as well. Like, what? Do you, there's like you can bake bread with it too, man. Come on, you know. Anyway, so they're underground, and then they find like some weird shrines and statues and shit, and they're like, don't touch any of it. And then weird stuff starts happening, and then they're just like, oh, and like the one dude stands in front of the shrine, he just starts stabbing himself with a crowbar, you know, all that stuff. And then, you know, everyone just like dies, and then the one rescuer person who's a woman, she goes and just like stabs the camera guy. He's like, duh! You know. And then, of course, because she was covered in soot and all that stuff, but when she did that, she's like all clean and pretty, you know. And then the guy's like, ah! And then the camera kind of just like, I don't know what is happening with the camera. Is the guy still holding it? Is it just like in space kind of thing? But then she just starts going like, let me unzip my jumpsuit, titties, you know, because it's a horror thing, and if a bitch isn't showing titties, are you really doing horror? You know, she's just titties, and she's like, I sacrifice, you know. I wrote down girl boss removing the heart of the cameraman. Because she's like, pulls out his heart. Mind you, his heart is like this, his heart is the size of a baby cabbage, you know? I'm like, sir, yeah, there's a lot, if your heart is that enlarged, my God, you know, if you weren't gonna die now, obviously, you were soon going to die. It's huge. I was like, I looked at it, I was like, that's just not medically accurate, you know? I mean, I've made a, you know, fake heart in a box, so I, like, kind of know. Anyway, so, but yeah, I also love that while that's happening, it's like, did the guy, like, pan the camera down to see his heart be removed? Who was operating the camera at this point? Because I was just like, what's going on? And then I love how the camera, like suddenly lighting is like, you know, the Saw, the Ring green blue tint, you know, the early 2000s tint of every horror film, you know. It starts doing that, and she's just like, da-da-da, you know, sacrificing stuff, and then she's all naked, because again, if you don't have nudity, then, like, you're not doing horror. So the next segment is called TKNOGD, I think. I wrote that really fast. And I'm going to be honest, it's not my favorite segment. From what I can tell with the people I follow on Letterboxd, it also wasn't their favorite segment. It also doesn't help, it's like right slap dab in the middle too, so it kind of made you just kind of, that's literally me cracking my neck. That's literally how it made me feel. So it's like a one-woman show, kind of spoken word, and it's like how the woman like doesn't like technology and how technology is like taking over us and all that stuff. It's like, honey, little do you know, you know. Of course, she shows like a video of a guy talking about like going into like a virtual world, very Tron-like kind of thing. He has these techno gloves and iPhones. They look like an Oculus thing, an Oculus VR set. And then at one point he's like, we upgrade to this, and it's like a motorcycle helmet with a visor, and you know that takes you into this Tron world and stuff. And so then the woman like does her like one woman show with the helmet on, and she kind of just starts saying words. Again, I was really bored by this. Like, I get where they were going with this, but it was just kind of like, because it was something like so bottle like on a stage and all that stuff, like, and a lot of those kind of spoken word kind of shows do kind of give off that like, oh Jesus Christ, get this over with kind of feel. So like it was a little too like, so on one hand, yes, they did really well because it was very accurate to what those shows are, but at the same time I was just like, please, you know, somebody throw a pie, you know, like it was, ow, you know, something. VR shit. Oh yeah, I think it was like the thing, the dude's the video, I think it said NFT channel, I wasn't sure, and I wrote Tron. Once she like started going into the Tron world, I'm gonna be honest, I had to pause it because like I feel like if I didn't pause it and like give myself a break, I don't think I probably would have just like let it play and then not pay attention to it, you know what I mean? I would have just been like, I'm gonna be one of those people that are like, I was just on my phone, and so I didn't know, I didn't, I literally went and like washed like makeup brushes. I was just like, I need to get these done. I'm like, let me get this done while I kind of like give myself like 10 minutes away from this thing. But once I was done with that, I was back, and then the lady, she's just like, going on about the technology, and then the big old thing. Something happens anyway. She gets zapped a doodle, and then the camera guy lifts up the visor, and like an eyeball sticking out, and like, because people thought it was part of the show, but she died. When I read, I said tech kills. The next one is Ambrosia, and it's like a family gathering again. It's one of those like big old VHS cameras kind of thing. And, they're talking about how, like, okay, we're talking about family tradition and all that stuff, and we're having salad, and it's a good old thing. And the young woman in the family is like, oh, normally, I would get you guys would get the projector out and show, like photos. She's like holding up like, like a freaking like tape, and she's like, I've got a video, that kind of stuff. And the family's like, ooh, gather around the TV. And then she's like, oh, our family tradition, the 7. And then they all hold up like their wrists and it says 7. Remember what I said earlier? On the fucking RV, there was a Roman numeral 7, and then all their arms have Roman numeral 7. And I immediately was like, wait, this is connected? So I paused, and then I looked it up, and I was like, oh, it's the same director. Okay. Because none of the segments had the same, it's different people, except for this one. 2 segments had the same director, and I was like, okay, someone was allowed to do extra work, and so it shows that she was the one who shot all those people at the lake, because apparently it's a family tradition. The 7 thing is that you have to like sacrifice 7 people, yada huda, as a family tradition. It's like, wow, that's great, guys. That's great. That's your tradition, So yeah, they showed the video of the killing. So then, because they're showing the video, then they're like, oh, you see earlier, you see like, you notice off to the distance really quickly, like the RV, very recognizable, speeds away, and you're like, what? But it's like real quick. You don't really notice it. And like a little boy had like a little squirt gun. You're like, this feels familiar. So anyway, the family was like, hey, don't get caught if, because a cop starts showing up while they're showing the video footage of her offing everyone. And they were like, cops start showing up, and they said, don't, get caught. If you get caught, and so, like they start shooting stuff, and like the cousin, whomever, who ended up taking over the camera, he's like, no, he's like, I can't do this. I'm not gonna shoot cops. And so the girl was like, well, bam, sorry, bitch, and so of course, this one was good because it falls, and again, it's doing the angle thing perfectly. She's in the shot, but you don't really see anything else. It's not like, again, seeing down the hallway kind of stuff. And she's just like, she's like, cops are coming, that kind of stuff. But remember, she got sprayed with the water. Remember, spray gun water. Remember, there was in the first segment, there's a little water pistol. Anyway, so then she just like because coroners come by, and then she, comes back to life, shoots them, and then, she's like, no, I'm not gonna get caught. And she like, shoots herself in the head, but then she gets back up. She's like, what the fuck? And then the cops take her away, and she's like, no, that kind of stuff. And then at the end of that, you see the people who were previously shot and now alive, just like, filling up the water pistol with the water, and they're like, do you think this is going to work? Because they handed the gun to the little boy, and it was pretty much, because what are kids going to do when you give them a water gun? They're going to spray at people, So, yeah. So I thought that was really interesting to tie back to the first segment, because the first segment was just kind of like, kind of stuff, which is very much just like it's fine. I was fine with it just being kind of like a what the fuck is going on kind of thing. It's still what the fuck, because what is the magic water in the lake? Like, what is that kind of stuff? But it was kind of interesting to see that like they were able to exact their revenge, because they called the cops knowing that like this little kid's probably gonna spray it on several people, maybe at least one person, so at least they can't die, so then they'll get caught, and then they're, that they're caught for shooting 7 people, and then, 4 of them living through all of that. Can't imagine that one lady, but that was really interesting. But the final segment is called Dream Kill. This one's my favorite segment, and again, according to the few buddies I follow on Letterboxd, I almost said Instagram, this was also their favorite segment. And this one, like, I even looked at the other VHS, looked at the other reviews on Letterboxd, and a lot of people were like, this should be like, I wish this was like its own short film, like short film, or at least long film, or at least something longer than the segment kind of thing. So you get this like really good like 8 millimeter super grainy POV of like a break and entering kind of stuff. I'm like, I like this. What's going on? It kind of looks kind of dream-esque. Like it's from first person perspective, but no one's holding the camera because you see the 2 hands of the person. You're like, what's going on here? And so someone gets murderized, and then the cops and forensic photographers get there, and the cop is like, this home looks familiar. It's like, wasn't there a tape that got sent to the precinct, like, last week or something? And I'm like, this is the place. Goes upstairs. You're like, no, this is the woman. Like, what the fuck? And they were like, they're like, what? How is there like a tape that like precogs this murder? Kind of thing. So they're trying to figure it out, and so then they pretty much like set up cameras at mailbox and all that stuff, and finds like a goth kid mailing this. And it's like, well, of course, god damn it. Turns out it's the son of the forensic photographer guy who's like working closely with the detective who's doing all this. He's the one who follows him around on all the cases. Oh, there was a second killing, and it was a dude, and he got all sliced up. And they're like, oh, the same thing that sliced the lady sliced this, blah, blah, blah. Detective work, ow. So they find out, it's the gothy son of the guy, which turns out is actually the son of the director. Because I was looking at him like, who is this kid? Anyway, so it turns out that like his family has is a long line of like psychics and all that stuff, and because the son has been experimenting with like like tapes and recording and all that stuff, that like his psychic ability has been kind of like leaking into tapes and stuff. Sure, very Sadako kind of stuff, very like that it goes fine. Let's just allow that. So he mails out like when they caught him is when he was mailing out the third tape, and it's super gruesome, super dismemberment, all that stuff. So then they find out that the detective guy finds out he's talking to his forensic photographer buddy. He's like, hey, you gave up being a cop to just do forensic stuff because you were told to step down, because I just realized that the first woman victim and is a woman who, the first one and this third one, these 2 women accuse you of like assault, and then the second dude was the lawyer of either one of them or both of them. It's like, dude, you're involved, and in the midst of that, dude gets shot, and actually like it startled me because I was like, oh god, I wasn't expecting that. And then he gets out of the vehicle and does the job that was precogged, and then you see like the son is back in the interrogation like room, and he like looks into the camera and like sees like the dream he just like had, because he was like kind of taking a nap at the table, and he looks in and sees what happened, which is like his dad comes in and he's just like, you did this, and he's like, well, I'm gonna kill you, son. He's like, no, I already saw what's gonna happen, I know what's gonna happen. And then like there's like some quick like hallway gunfight scene, and then then the son like ends up killing the dad kind of stuff, and it's like it was a really interesting segment. Like again, if they expanded on it just a little more, again, I feel like I don't really see this as like a full, oh god, my camera died. Real quick before the camera overheats again. So yeah, like I said, really like the dream kill thing. Really like that segment a lot. Really like how it went and all that stuff. Like I said, wish it was expanded upon just a little bit for its own thing. But yeah, so that was VHS 85. I feel like from what it seems like, because Shudder's involved now, that maybe we'll get a new VHS movie every year. It's not necessary, but sure, why not? You know what I mean? It's good, like, for small things like this, like little anthology things like this happen, because you get a lot of like unknown indie directors doing it, or you got like directors who've done like things like, what's his name, who did the last one, like he directed, Doctor Strange, you know what I mean? Like he also produced like Black Phone and all that stuff. Like some of them have done like slightly larger projects involved in like bigger things, but their names are still kind of unknown. Um but that kind of stuff is good for like semi unknown, like again, good stuff for indie people, so it's not the same, people all the time, or you got people who like make full length horror movies all the time, and then, you're like, oh, it's this thing. Who directed it? God, stop letting this person direct horror films, or just films in general, But anyway, so yeah, VHS 85. Again, fuck it. They should have me do one. I mean, I don't really have like a portfolio of like movies I filmed. I don't. But if watching practically every Neil Breen movie has taught me, is that anybody can make anything they want. I still haven't watched his newest one, and I will the moment it becomes super available. But anyway, VHS 85. I almost said 55. That'll probably be the next one. God.